course, our guest is on set, Mr. Ashworth Jack, my villager and schoolmate and thing from primary school and thing. He's a top up here and thing. But anyway, we ain't gonna talk that. Good morning. Good morning and welcome, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Brother B. Good morning, Tobago. Thank you for having me this morning. I think Channel 5 started many short notices.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess when you raise certain points, you will get a reaction. But firstly, let me ask you, the launch of the PDP in Trinidad, obviously history was made on Sunday. Just give me a overview as to what that is.
I think that is one of the beauties of democracy. Democracy allows for full participation of persons, and I think what happened on Sunday showed that you can come from the smaller island in terms of an organization, and you can make such an impact that persons on the larger island think it necessary to have you, and I think that this is going to be a very interesting time. It's going to be a very interesting time. I saw you there having a ball. Well, and that's one of the things, you find that the majority of the time, journalists and talk show hosts from Trinidad are the ones who come to Tobago to cover events. And it is not very often, except for things like the budget and stuff like that, that you find that that Tobago journalists have an opportunity to see things happening in Trinidad that affects the whole nation, but emanated in the Tobago space. And I think even that in itself was a major achievement.
All right. The PEP, led by Mr. Phillips, seems to be beating in his interview or his conversation with me about having joining with the PDP's interested, and of course, and also with the new party formed by Mr. Gary Griffith, the National Transformation Alliance. Would you advise, if you had to advise the PDP leader to form an alliance?
I think that you first have to look to see what you have in common. I think too often people do things out of haste. And I have always said I believe in information, not emotion. You have to see if there are things in common. Because let me tell you, even with the best intent, 2 and 3 and 4 men not in the same hole could be a little problematic.
Would you say that was a result of the People's Partnership at the time?
Any organization, even within generic organizations like the present one in government, there are going to be a lot of, and people, we all know that there are a lot of infighting taking place, but because the organization is one generic organization, you find that how they discipline you is a lot harder and stuff like that. If you come from your own organization, you're not taking any crap from nobody.
Very good.
But I think in the best interest of the country, people have to learn to start to work together.
Very good.
Because there's no one man who has all the answers. Man or woman in this case, because you have to be very careful about the gender issue.
Exactly, right.
There's no man or woman, or one person who has all the answers.
So the PDP has put its brand nationally, and of course we watch to see what that will do. All right, let's move to one of the, yesterday when you called in Cup of Tea, you spoke about the need for foreign investment. So let's talk, of course, the Marriott seeking to obtain that piece of real estate right at what we call Back Bay. And that, of course, there is someone, an individual is saying that we can't afford to give that land up. And we'll deal with the whole question of how foreigners access lands. But just tell us the importance, or what is it, how important it is for us to invest foreigners.
I think what we're doing is two different things, right? One is specific location, and the other is foreign investment as a whole. I am a proponent for foreign investment, and let me explain to you why, and let me explain to the nation why. Tobago budget is about, the Tobago Assembly, Tobago budget is a bit larger. It's about 3 billion, thereabout. And when you see what happened in terms of having to create employment, in terms of the health sector, education, you will see every year the request is larger and larger, but the actual allocation remains about 4.03% based on the Dispute Resolution Commission. And for persons who don't know, prior to the Dispute Resolution Commission, the Tobago House of Assembly used to get about between 1.7 and never more than 2.2% of the budget. At that rate, Tobago will remain lagging behind not only the country, and we should start by judging what the country does, and then you look at the rest of the Caribbean and the rest of the world. Tobago will not be able to catch up and to bring itself into this modern world with that kind of allocation. If you, at the same time, the issue of borrowing is a favor from a minister of finance, because the minister of finance have to give you permission to borrow. And then when you get that permission, you have to repay that money from the 4.03%. And because you don't have enough to go around in terms of your own investment, what you will find happening is that every year you have to take some of that money, which will normally be used for other goods and services, to now repay that loan. And therefore, if Tobago is to catch up, the world is flushed with liquidity. But the quality of your negotiation is what is important.
Good.
You know, so I know that there is an unhealthy fear about foreign investment, but I just want to kind of turn people to the rest of the world. In almost every country in the world, they look at bringing in some cash, because especially if they can't make all that money. China is a case in point. China had a massive population, always had. But there was a time, probably less than 35 years ago, that China economically was unheard of. It started with Mao Zedong, and then it comes to Li and all those guys. What they did, they made a conscious effort and said, we want to change this economy. And so they started to court foreign investors. And they court foreign investors to a place where China is the second largest economy in the world. You know, and so
we need to.
Now that they have done that, they can then set some even harder barometers and say, listen, you can't do this, you can't do that, come out of your place, and stuff like that. Right. Tobago, when you look at Tobago's economy, Tobago economy is very, very small. When you look at the salaries of most Tobagonians are between $5,000 and $7,000, the majority of them. And you know how hard that is to live on. And it's because they don't have enough private investment in the island. So let's say Trinidad as a case in point. You will go to a company in Trinidad where people make $60,000 and $70,000 and $80,000 like nothing. And there are some clubs you go to in Trinidad, or some bars you go to in Trinidad, and you meet 40, 50 of those guys living on a Friday evening. But in Tobago, if you meet two of that, you're very lucky.
Right. So, so the point is, we need a thriving private sector.
Yes.
By having the foreign investors. All right, let's go now to. All right. So that is critical. I just want to go to that specific piece of real estate, Back Bay, that seems to be getting some reaction as to the negotiation as to what should be the approach. And let's deal with the whole question. These investors have to purchase the land. Let's look at it, right? So look at a Foreign Investment Act. The Foreign Investment Act, Chapter 707, came into being in August, the 17th of August, 1990. The Repeal Alien Landholding Act, Chapter 5802, Alien Act, regulates that holding of land or share, and of course directorship of foreigners.
4951.
Very good. So it means, therefore, and it goes on to say, foreigners need license from the minister to purchase lands for business or purposes, and cannot own more
for residential, everything over an acre,
right, 5 acres.
5 acres.
Let's speak to that piece of real estate and the need for Marriott to occupy that space. What should we do in that regard? Should we sell the land? Should we lease the land? And the license that are required? What do we need to do, Mr. Jack?
You see, I hear the issue of selling and leasing, and I'm not sure sometimes if it is a clear differentiation between them. When you lease somebody a piece of land for 99 years,
you practically give it to them.
You give it to them.
Right.
You know, you give it to them.
Right.
But I think in the case of that, maybe that specific piece of real estate, I think one of the things that we need to do is that we need to take a very close look at why people want a specific piece of real estate. And then we have to look at the importance of that historically to the people of the island. You know, there are a number of things that we have to take into consideration before we agree on a specific piece of real estate. If you ask me if we have to work with investors to bring business? The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Working with them, meaning
Yes.
you have to give up something for something?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. If you're climbing a ladder and you didn't let go the one you're on,
You ain't going nowhere.
then you can't get to the other one.
Okay.
You know, so it's
All right.
people need to understand that for Tobago to grow, there are some things that we have to give up. Sometimes I look at the people who does, and this might be a very ticklish place to go, but I've come to the place in my life, I tell the truth. Let's say, for instance, somebody wants to build a building, and one of the things that the most noise you hear now is from the environmental people.
Right.
And I tell people, if we don't cut down some trees, we can't build some houses.
Okay.
But you have to look at what impact it has, maybe in terms of how close it is to the watershed. There are things that you have to
So
look
you have
at.
to give some
But at the same time, people need homes to live in.
Okay, fine.
All
right, Mr. Jack, when we
and
come back.
similarly, in the Back Bay area,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people feel very close to that because of the historical significance of that to the island. So there are always going to be the fun against,
Very good.
but you have to look at what is the greater good.
Just tell us why it is important that we make those to invite foreign investors in Tobago.
But
treating with the employment issue and of course population growth.
If we look at if Tobago had all the money it needed to do all the development that is needed, then you wouldn't even have to worry about anybody else coming and spending money in Tobago in terms of investment. But at the rate of our development, it will take us probably, 50, 60 years to get to where some places are right now. The thing about it is that we have a set budgetary allocation, even with the advent of natural gas and all that. The argument out of trial is, well, you was getting money all the time, so this is what the law says you should get 4.03. At the same time, every year, in fact, almost every day, some young Tobagonian gets frustrated and leaves Tobago because they can't find a job that pays them based on the experience and or education. When they look around, it's always something that works against you. And I'm saying, if you have more opportunities in Tobago, you'll be able to retain more of your population. I don't know a family in Tobago that have not been affected by migration, probably in a big way. I mean, in my own family, the majority of my nieces, nephews, siblings had to leave Tobago to make a living. I tell people I live in Tobago by choice. Tobago hard to live, Tobago hard to live, and so sometimes you have to make a conscious effort, abstain and help to fix this. And even when you do, you are targeted for all kind of reasons. We say we live in a democracy, and we live in a democracy that says you must agree with me all the time. Other than that, you become the enemy. Okay. And so all kind of little reasons, people have to run to the THE for all kind of things. And because of that, you find you have this very close economy that says the THE has to employ too many of the citizens. Right. So, and any government that have to employ so much people will become a dictatorial government.
So let's now look at the options of foreign investors. All right. So the argument is Marinette will not provide enough employment or employment at all, that is absolute rubbish. Given that you will need staff, that's one. Putting aside the hotel, Marriott, put aside that, there are other investors that needs to be in Tobago to help, should we say, in saving our citizens, for providing the employment that they need. There are other type of investors that I'm sure.
Of course, yeah.
We want to look at what do you call it?
Solar panels. Solar panels.
Right. Just speak from that standpoint, Mr. Jack.
Because
we're not confining to hotel, because in some people's view that is slavery,
right?
Which is not.
No, it's not.
But get to the point.
I mean, even let me just quickly on the slavery thing. Hotel. We travel. For people who travel, anywhere in the world you go, somebody serves you. It doesn't make you. There's a difference between service and servitude. Yeah. And we continue mixing up them, thinking that once you serve somebody, then you become a servant. No, you provide a service. That being said, Tobago's location in terms of the Caribbean, in terms of this part of the world, is ideal. Because a lot of the vessels, a lot of the airlines pass through this airspace. You have to get from one place to the next. It means, therefore, some of those things that are manufactured in other areas in the Caribbean, it will be cheaper if they're manufactured in Tobago.
Great.
And shipped to the other parts of the world. One of the big things in the world today is solar power. Why can't we start lobbying with some major company, whether it be from Germany, whether it be from wherever, to start manufacturing solar panels? We spend hundreds of millions of dollars in a place called Cove. What we have there? Okay. What do we have there? Right. You know, and so what we need to start to look at is getting away from 100%, and I call it 100% because it's either direct or indirectly the government affects your employment. It is said that the government employs mostly 70-something, 80% of Tobago's population directly, and indirectly, a lot of them you're buying from the hard, the government buying from the hardware, you're buying from the grocery, a number of other things. Indirectly, the government also. So when that happens, people feel beholden. And you know, I want to say to leaders in the Tobago space, if you want to know how important you are, lose an election. The same people who yesterday, who in December this 5th, thought they were indispensable. They'd been passed by some of the people who was calling them boss the day before. And so the issue of how we deal with the development of Tobago have to be one that looks at private sector development. Great. That allows for persons not to have to be beholden to any government. I don't care which government it is. At the same time, allows for a different kind of employment, and it allows to keep a lot of our citizens in this. Tobago have a lot of talented people.
All right. Okay. Let me bring, and I can't have this conversation without bringing, going back to the Sanders arrangement that clearly, well, Butch Stewart said too much politics and he packed up and he left. However, that arrangement cannot be the same arrangement.
It better not be
into the Marriott.
It better not be.
Right, what should be done differently in this regard, Mr. John?
First thing for Sanders was not bringing any money. It's our money was building the Sanders.
Right. Well, that's clear.
$billions of our money. And at the same time,
he was going to get tax breaks as well.
Right. So I give you money and then I give you some more money.
Right.
And then when you look at some of the service agreements and stuff, it said, okay, we'll buy from you if we can't get cheaper nowhere else.
So something was wrong with it.
Of course, there were a lot of things wrong.
What is right now?
The Tobagonians were not brought on board early enough. Right. I mean, I didn't know how the government with all their PR could have butchered so bad.
All right.
You had to bring in all the service providers, that be entertainers, taxi drivers, all that very, very early. And you have to ask them, okay, how do you see this? What do you see about it? But you brought him and said, this is what we're giving you. And when people look at it, they say, well, this doesn't have any advantage to us. Tobago was, in terms of what we get for what we was giving, was not in the best place.
Very good. All right, let's bring the Marriott scenario in, and how important is that, and how do we do this arrangement differently so that Tobago benefits?
If we don't fix the way things are done in Tobago in terms of the tourism sector, you could bring the best hotel in the world, nothing will happen. Nothing will change. And so the issue, because look right now, we have 3 hotels, the 3 biggest hotels in Tobago are on the brink of going under. Mount Irvin, Cocoa Reef, and the Magdalena. They are the 3 largest plants in Tobago, and all 3 are in trouble. And therefore, we need to rebrand our tourism. I don't know, and maybe I'm putting my foot in my mouth here. I will get into trouble.
All right. But anyway,
I don't know
why. Before you go on,
have you ever let me see this.
Okay.
Have you ever looked at any of the game show, talk shows and stuff, and see Grenada, St. Lucia, everybody offering a package to come to Grenada, St. Lucia? I have never seen Tobago do it, and I say, but these things are attracting millions of people every day. You know, so we have to do things differently.
All right, but the high-end hotel is needed. Not everybody going to run to Castara.
Of course,
not everybody going to be that. So we need a high-end hotel or a 5-star and so on. So that is a need. Yeah, given that tourism is the mainstay, we got to do it differently to attract, and that brand will attract its own followers.
Of course, it does.
So just in closing, there we got.
I went to St. Kitts Nevis. I consider it almost like my second home, and they have one of the best Marriotts in the world. Fantastic place, always full. Right. You see, there are persons, the same people who tell you you don't need some of the high-end hotels, are the same people who dream of going to Dubai. They're praying to God, I want to go to Dubai.
Everybody wants to go to Dubai.
To go to a high-end hotel.
Yes.
To go to a place that have a certain persona. Yes. And I'm saying to us, let us take it back a bit and realize that Tobago has so much to offer.
Yeah.
But there are some people who would not come to Tobago. They're not even lying in the airport because they don't have a VIP area. And I said, the airport. But we were going to the airport.
All right. We'll talk
because I ain't seen nothing going on there.
Mr. Jack, we got to leave it there. We want to thank you for being here and thank you for the points that you made. And of course, I hope that